Alright, for this tutorial we're going to look at how to scale objects within Spoke Creator. You can see that I've got two polycircles here. I've just created one next to the other one. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a little network so we can actually begin to scale these. So to do this I'm going to go back to the first one here and I'm going to go into the Atom menu, go down to Geometry, and in the transform you can see that there's a whole bunch of options. And we're just going to focus on scale for this one. So within scale there's a whole bunch of different options. You can scale it on an axis or uniformly, so I can make this twice as big or whatever we really need it to be. But to make this a little bit more customizable, we're going to now bring in the floats, which we covered in one of the last tutorials. So I'm just going to go tab and search for float. And what we're going to do is use this to input how much we want to scale this polycircle by. So remember, if we go back to the scale atom here, we can see that we're going to be plugging it into uniform scale. So it's going to be moving or scaling this object uniformly on the X, Y and Z axis. So this float is going to determine how much it is. So we go up to the float. I want to, for the max, I only want to create it so it can maximum be 3 times as big as what it already is. So I'm going to have a max of 3, a min of 0, and then I'm going to grab this one and plug it into uniform scale. Right, so with this float I'm just going to quickly right click on that, make it sticky so it's now permanently up in the parameter view. No matter where we click you can see it's still up there. If we click on scale now, we can now use the slider to change the scale of that polycircle. So we have 2 of these things now, the one that's being transformed and the one next to it. So what I want to do, just to make it a little bit more interesting, is I'm going to use the skin tool, which we covered in the last tutorial. So searching for skin, and remember, since we've only got 2 curves here, one there, one here, we can only have an order which is as high as the curve count. So we've got 2 curves, we're going to have an order of 2. So I'm going to plug the second one in here. Remember, since I'm pulling 2 pieces of geometry into one atom, I need to hold shift. And we'll add the plus arrow will come up next to the mouse. Plug it into skin, and you can see now we have a little bit of surface being created. Now the exciting bit is, if we now change this, just zoom out a little bit, change the slider, we can actually see that the geometry is changing with the scale tool. So essentially what's happening is that these 2 shapes are changing in relationship to each other. You can see that one of them's going to get bigger and the other one's staying the same, and it's just using those 2 curves to create the surface. So we're scaling one to make it bigger or smaller. So that's basically how to use the scale tool. It's pretty straightforward, but you can create some really nice effects with it.